Rock Talk.
Alex, can you hear me?
I can hear someone, yes.
We apologize for all the trouble here. Hopefully we can get you in for a couple of minutes.
No problem.
Okay. Why don't you just go ahead and start talking about why we called you? Because at this point, I've completely lost track of my program.
Yeah, so if we couldn't have it bad enough with having a terrible legislator that's all anti-gun, now in the debate a few weeks ago, Governor Christie went on national television, blatantly lied to the millions of Americans watching that he made concealed carry easier in our state. So we decided to go the next day, stop by some police departments, and have myself and other people try to apply because of this lie that he was spreading. And it was all false. The cops were telling all of us that he's done nothing to make the concealed carry application easier. If anything, it's harder today than it was years ago.
That sounds about right. So has anything changed since the last time we talked to you with regard to your investigation?
Absolutely nothing. He even put out, because of our videos, he put out a commission report claiming that he was going to resolve all these issues. Now, listen to how insane this is, and the terror we had to deal with every single day as New Jerseyans. For over 6 years now, we've been telling the governor's office, the attorney general's office, and the police department that they're violating the law, that they're requiring all these additional forms, all the additional requirements when applying for a firearms card. And the governor's claiming that he, as the commander-in-chief of New Jersey, cannot contact the police department to tell them to cut the crap out, follow the law, and if they don't follow the law, they'll be charged with official misconduct. You know, that's the kind of liar that he is. And for years, he's been doing nothing. Suddenly, he suddenly cares about the Second Amendment and wants to gain all of our support. These are fake Second Amendment supporters, and this is why nobody should ever trust Governor Christie.
Well, one of the things that's happening in this state is that the various gun groups, the gun advocacy groups, managed to keep Scott Brown, who is a pretty well-known to be rather poor on Second Amendment issues. They kept him out of office in the last election. And it's some people's view here that it may be possible that part of the reason that Christie is trying to remake himself in this image is to make sure the gun groups in New Hampshire don't come after him and defeat his chances for winning here.
Well, they already have gone after him. I've been in communication with many of them. They're not falling for his lies, and I'm glad his membership is not falling. I had the privilege of actually visiting your state house, which was, like going into the Twilight Zone. You walk in, there's no cops harassing you, there's no metal detectors. Practically every legislator that I met is showing me their side piece and how they're concealed carrying. It was unbelievable. If you go to our state house, it's almost like going to, a military base. And first you get harassed, you're asked why you're there, you're getting patted down, you're going through metal detectors, you have to open up your bag, and, no guns are allowed. It's such a statist mentality. But, the fact of the matter is that this Governor Christie, is going around the country lying to people, saying he's made it easier to get a concealed. And we've documented that. If you go to nj2as.com, you can see our undercover videos. The cops are blatantly laughing when I ask them, did Governor Christie make the concealed carry application easier? And they're laughing in our face, even admitting to the fact that he speaks from both sides of his mouth and has done nothing. If anything, it's harder today than it was 6 years ago.
Have you guys got a plan in place? I mean, I know this is New Jersey, and obviously your goal is to try to improve the circumstances for acquiring a permit to even purchase a firearm, let alone a carry permit. What do you think? What's your long-term strategy for trying to improve that situation in your state?
Well, we have a lot of women coming forward now. That's a big demographic that, ironically, when we talk to them, they feel nervous to come forward because now they're afraid that the police are going to come after them by speaking up about all the oppression they deal with. When you speak to them, when you speak to women in New Jersey, it's almost like they're coming from the 1920s and feeling oppressed and beaten down in society. So our plan is to start mobilizing better, start exposing the hypocrisy, documenting things through video evidence, undercover evidence, and hopefully getting people fired. And you'll see how police departments will start turning their tune. Not to also mention, we're going to have to go after the judges, not physically, but, we know the judges have concealed carry applications. We've documented that very well. We're going to be coming out with videos on that very soon. So it's an elitist mentality, it's an elitist society, and surprisingly, because of our videos, we've actually had a lot of police departments coming forward telling us they want to be part of the solution. They firmly believe in the Second Amendment, but the problem is that the legislators much control over what happens in the police departments that they intimidate them, they influence them to keep perpetuating this anti-gun, agenda.
Is it not true, Alex, that even retired police officers have a hard time getting guns in gun permits in New Jersey?
Exactly. In New Jersey, we are known for eating our own, and they actually are now going after police officers, and denying them permits. One case in particular that I was contacted by last week, we're going to start documenting this, is the police chief was telling the applicant, who was a retired police officer, that he only served 14 years in the police department, and he believes you have to serve 25 years. Oh. That's the kind of terror, that we deal with, and this classic statist mentality.
I know that it's going to be difficult. When you look at the map, like say in New Hampshire, we look at 400 House seats, for example, and we try to find legislators and districts that we can flip to people who are more favorable. Do you have any hope of that in New Jersey?
You know what? Unfortunately, we lost 4 more assembly seats to the Democrats, which was a major blow. And it's not about being a Democrat or Republican. It's about being pro-gun or anti-gun or anti-rights and pro-rights. And unfortunately, we had 4 really good people in the Republican seats that were very pro-A. Now, when I mean pro-A, they actually firmly believe in constitutional carry. So we don't know what 2017 is going to bring, when that's going to be our next race where all the seats are up. But, New Jersey is the number 1 state that people are literally fleeing, and I emphasize fleeing. Every day, 10,000 people are leaving our state.
10,000 a day?
A day.
That's 3 million a year.
Yes, exactly. So,
how big's your population?
We have over 9 million people in our state.
Well, it'll be empty in 3 years.
Coming in, but there's more people leaving.
Fire sale.
I could go with 10,000 a week. I think you may have got an order of magnitude wrong there, Alex.
Nationwide, 1,000 people a day are leaving Democrat-controlled states because of the taxes, very high taxes, crime, corruption, roads and highways aren't getting fixed, and a lot of other problems. But the main reason they're leaving is the lack of jobs. Businesses are moving out, investment is moving out, business activity is moving out. They're moving to Republican states.
Not a lot of gun
safer.
jobs in New Jersey.
Actually,
No.
Alex, what you ought to do is go look at the U-Haul records from out when they're leaving New Jersey to see where they're going. I've watched some of those interactive maps, and it is extremely illuminating to see where the blue social model states are and where the more conservative free market ones are, and you can watch the outflows and inflows, and it's actually very startling.
Exactly. Well, the communities I'm involved in, predominantly Second Amendment, and I travel the country, and everywhere I go, it blows my mind how many Second Amendment supporters there are out there that have left New Jersey, predominantly for the fact that they're tired of being victims, and they want the right to be able to protect themselves, their property, and their loved ones. And it just blows my mind when I was in New Hampshire, South Carolina, and Arizona, how many people from New Jersey are leaving predominantly for those reasons, on top of the benefits of more tax-friendly areas and free market states.
Well, Emily's a number cruncher. I think she had a question.
Yeah. Well, and there's actually a book that somebody wrote about 3 or 4 years ago called How Money Moves. And it's a guy who gets IRS records, and he observes how people move from the flow from one state to another. And he actually looks at which states pump into what other states, and what states, where people go from a state to other states. And he looks at that, and it's really quite interesting because certain states just have massive outflows and no inflows to speak of. And one of them is New Jersey. Another one is your neighbor, New York, which has similarly bad policies, both economic and Second Amendment policies. So one of the things that you can do is you can look at these statistics and figure out exactly what's going on and why people are moving, just by looking at differences in policy between states.
I guess that wasn't actually a question, was it?
No, it wasn't actually a question.
Just a statement.
But it's a lovely resource to get your hands on.
Yep. All right, so we got a couple more minutes left, Alex. Any closing thoughts about Governor Christie and his presidential campaign?
I wouldn't trust him as far as I can throw him, and I probably can't throw him very far. But, the proof is in the pudding. What he's claiming and stating on the national media, and what we're documenting through video evidence, it's massive contradictions. So what he says and what he's actually doing is two completely polar opposites. And people have to realize that, all he literally has to do is write a letter to the Attorney General to direct the police department to stop breaking the law, that permits should not take over a year to be processed, that people are literally, I'm not kidding when I tell you this, people are literally dying while waiting for their permits to be completed and so-called investigated, and he won't even do that. So when it comes to our Second Amendment, we're at a very pivotal moment in American history. Do we want a fake Second Amendment supporter who's not going to stand up for our rights, or someone that's going to actually do it?
All right, so Alex, how do people reach you and support your efforts?
They can visit NJ, like New Jersey, the number 2, the letter AS.com. That's NJ2AS.com. Our contact information is there. All the undercover videos are posted on our main site. And, we'll be more than happy to talk to people from all around the country.
All right, well, thanks for finally being able to get on Grok Talk.
All right, thanks for having me back on.
Need more Grok Talk? Well, you can catch new shows Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Miss a show? Not a problem. Past shows are rebroadcast here daily from 9 to 11 a.m. Monday through Friday. Join us for 2 hours of unapologetic conservatism. And we're not just armed with opinions.